The fluorescent lights of the supermarket buzzed above me. Too bright, too sterile. I stood frozen. Clutching the paper bag of groceries that had just been slid back across the counter. The cashier avoided my eyes as the words, "Declined card," flashed on the screen, over and over, like a cruel neon sign. Behind me, my mother's voice rose, sharp and slicing through the murmurs of the line. "She's my daughter," she announced, gesturing toward me as though I were some misbehaving child. "And she's forgotten her duty." Imagine letting her own mother be humiliated like this. Her words carried of deliberate. People turned their heads. A man in a suit frowned. A woman in yoga pants whispered something to her child. My cheeks burned. The cashier swallowed hard and pushed the card toward me with both hands as if it were contaminated. I didn't speak. I didn't defend myself. My throat locked shut as my mother's tirade escalated. She has a big job, makes more money than anyone in this family, and yet she can't even cover basic groceries. Shameful. The words clanged against my ribs like iron bars. Shameful. Ungrateful. Selfish. Years of labels she'd been sticking on me for years, in public, in private, until they glued themselves to my skin. I gathered the bag, the single paper bag that had survived the voided transaction, and walked out. Not a word, not a glance back. My mother's voice trailed after me, dripping with accusation. "Don't forget who raised you, Isabella. Don't forget your purpose." Outside, the January air slapped my face. I leaned against the cold brick wall, chest rising and falling like I'd just run a marathon. My hands trembled. I wasn't angry yet. Not the white, hot kind of anger that would come later. But hollow, drained. Like a vessel emptied out long ago. Years of. I sat in my car with the groceries pressed against my lap and let the silence wrap around me. It was safer there, inside the metal shell, where no one could judge. My phone buzzed, Mom calling. I let it ring out. But the voicemail chimed seconds later. "Bella, answer me right now. You're being dramatic. All I asked was for you to increase the limit. Don't embarrass me like that again." Her voice was casual, as if she hadn't just turned an entire grocery store into a stage for my humiliation. The truth is, that scene at Whole Foods wasn't beginning. It was the middle of a story I hadn't admitted I was living. 12 years of. The true beginning came 2 years earlier, on a Tuesday morning that carved a scar into my family's life. I had been pouring coffee into my travel mug when the phone rang. My mother's voice, panicked, high-pitched. "Isabella, your father collapsed. The ambulance is here. Come, now." By the time I reached the hospital, my father was a ghost of himself. Tubes, machines, a blur of white coats and jargon. Stroke, paralysis, long-term care. The language of catastrophe. In the sterile conference room, 12 years of, while the doctor explained physical therapy schedules and medication costs, my brother scrolled through his phone, thumbs tapping out some message about brunch or Bitcoin. My mother sobbed into tissues that piled up like snowdrifts. When the doctor left, the silence was suffocating. Then my mother turned to me with eyes red, rimmed but steady. "You'll figure this out, Isabella. You're the responsible one." It wasn't a request. It was a decree. And just like that, the sentence was past caregiver, provider, family wallet. For months, I wrote checks without thinking. Hospital equipment, therapy sessions, even modifications to the house. The numbers on my bank app shrank, but I told myself it was temporary, a stopgap. Family first. Always family first. But the stopgap became a dam bursting open. One prescription turned into a mountain of medical bills. One home modification became endless. Comfort upgrades. My savings bled out. My 40 wonk cracked open. Dreams I had hoarded quietly. graduate school, a down payment on a house. The possibility of children someday drifted farther out of reach with every swipe of my card. And through it all, my mother built a story, a narrative polished like silver and displayed at every gathering. "This is Isabella," she'd say proudly, squeezing my arm. "Our blessing. She takes care of everything. She doesn't have a husband or children to worry about. So of course she devotes herself to us." The room would hum with approval, as if I were fulfilling some sacred prophecy. Cousins would nod knowingly. Aunt Carol would pat my hand and whisper, "You're so lucky you don't have other responsibilities. You can focus on what really matters." I smiled tightly, the way one does when cornered. Inside, the words lodged like splinters. Lucky, free, devoted. None of them meant what people thought. They meant drained, trapped, erased. That night, after the Whole Foods debacle, I opened my laptop and stared at the spreadsheet that had become my secret diary. Every transaction logged, every dollar accounted for. In 2 years, I had spent more than $240,000 on my father's treatments, on household bills my parents claimed they couldn't meet, on my brother's quiet debts disguised as emergencies. The screen glowed with the evidence of my undoing. A decade of work, gone. I closed my eyes and thought about James. His voice the night he walked out. "I can't compete with your family, Isabella. You're destroying yourself for people who don't even say thank you. And your mother. She actually told me she hopes you stay single, so you'll never stop taking care of them." That was the night I lost him. Tonight, I realized, I might lose myself too. But something in me shifted as I stared at the spreadsheet. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was survival. Or maybe it was the faintest ember of rage, sparking after years of suffocation. I whispered into the dark apartment, voice cracking but real. "I can't do this anymore." The words hung in the air, trembling, daring me to believe them. 2. The next morning, I found myself driving not to the office, but across town, past rows of glass towers, to a law firm tucked into a quiet brick building. My old friend Alina worked there, a financial attorney with eyes that missed nothing. When she saw me step into her office, wrinkled suit, sleepless eyes, trembling hands, she didn't ask questions. She simply poured coffee into a porcelain cup and slid it across the desk. "What finally happened?" she asked softly. I exhaled, shaky. "My mother's card declined at Whole Foods. She called me selfish, said paying for them is my duty." Quilina leaned back, studying me. "And do you believe her?" For the first time in 2 years, I didn't answer with silence. "No," I said. "But I don't know how to stop." That was the moment the story began again, not with collapse, but with defiance. I didn't know it then, but the next choices I made would set fire to the script my family had written for me. And for once, I'd be the one holding the pen. Elena's office smelled faintly of leather and peppermint tea, a stark contrast to the suffocating chaos of my family's house. She slid my coffee closer, waiting. She had always been patient. Back in college, she'd wait for me to find the courage to speak in class, never filling the silence, never rescuing me. Now, that same patience pried me open. I laid the stack of papers across her desk. Bank statements, credit card bills, itemized receipts that stretched back 2 years, a grotesque timeline of sacrifice. Elena scanned the first few pages, her brow tightening. $200 for speech therapy, 3 times a week, 1,800 monthly prescriptions. House modifications, 35,000. Isabella, this is. She paused, exhaling. This is your entire future bleeding out. I gave a bitter laugh. Tell me something I don't know. She flipped another page, then looked up. You've liquidated your retirement accounts. You took out a personal loan. You're one crisis away from collapse. Her words should have terrified me, but I felt only numbness. Collapse wasn't a possibility. It was a shadow already following me home at night. The silence after her assessment stretched long. I stared at my hands, nails bitten down, fingers stiff. Finally, Elena said what I had been avoiding. This isn't caregiving, Isabella. It's financial abuse. The word abuse landed like a stone in the room. I wanted to reject it, to defend my family, to explain how they were hurting too, how my mother had given up her youth for us, how my brother wasn't as stable as he pretended. But the word clung to me. Abuse. It tasted wrong and true all at once. Then what do? I whispered. Elena's gaze sharpened. You take back control. Quietly. Legally. You've already started documenting everything, which is smart. But we can go further. She pulled a folder from her drawer, sliding it across the desk. Inside were crisp documents. Signatures, provisions. Your father set up a trust years ago. Did you know? I frowned. No. He never mentioned it. He appointed you successor trustee, which means, upon his incapacitation, you control it. My chest tightened. But my mother doesn't know, and she doesn't need to. Not yet. She explained carefully, every word deliberate. The trust contained $500,000, meant for medical expenses and necessary living costs. Strict, specific, protective. A safety net I hadn't known existed. Why me? I asked, voice breaking. Elena gave me a sad smile. Because your father knew them. He knew you'd be the one carrying the weight. The room tilted slightly. 12 years of. I thought of my father in his wheelchair, silent, blinking through half sentences. He had known this would come. He had prepared for it. He had seen me drowning before I even stepped into the water. But even armed with this knowledge, I hesitated. Activating the trust felt like detonating a bomb. My mother's rage, my brother's entitlement. The tidal wave of judgment from cousins and aunts. I could already hear it. You'll tear the family apart, I whispered. Elena's voice was steady. No, they already tore it apart. You're just refusing to keep patching the cracks with your blood. Her words struck deep, but I wasn't ready yet. Not then. I'll think about it. Who Elena didn't push. She only nodded, her eyes softening. You'll know when the moment comes. Document everything until then. Every request, every call, every guilt trip. When you're ready, we'll act. 2. I left her office, clutching the folder like contraband, my mind buzzing. For the first time in years, there was a door. A way out. But doors demand courage to walk through. The months that followed blurred into a rhythm of exhaustion. My days spreadsheets at work, bills at night. My weekends, my father's quiet company, my mother's endless demands. Marcus breezing in with expensive sneakers and weekend getaway stories. The script was always the same. Bella, your father needs a new recliner. Bella, premium cable will keep him entertained. Bella, Marcus is saving for his wedding. Years of, can't you cover his share of groceries just this once? The guilt pressed heavier than the bills. Each time I tried to push back, my mother's voice sharpened. You're single. What else do you have to spend money on? It was always framed as logic, as if my life, my non-existent husband, my absent children, was an open account waiting to be drained. And the worst part, everyone else believed it. At Thanksgiving, Aunt Carol carved the turkey I had bought, gushing about my devotion. You're so lucky you don't have your own family. You can dedicate yourself to your parents fully. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled tightly and passed the cranberry sauce. My brother raised a glass, smirking. To Bella, the family CFO. We'd be lost without her. Everyone laughed. My stomach twisted. They thought it was a joke, a compliment. But every laugh was a chain tightening around my throat. 2 nights were the hardest. Alone in my apartment. Years of. I ate ramen by candlelight, not for romance, but because I couldn't justify the electric bill. I scrolled past pictures of colleagues, vacationing in Greece, buying condos, getting engaged. I thought of James. The way he'd packed his suitcase with finality. I can't compete with your family. Isabella. And the way his words lingered after the door shut. You're choosing them over your own future. He hadn't been wrong. One night, lying awake at 3 a.m., I remembered something Elena had said. When you're ready, you'll know. I wondered what readiness would even look like. Courage. Anger. Desperation. Maybe all three. The answer came unexpectedly. A Sunday morning. My father sat by the window, drowsy in his wheelchair, while my mother bustled in the kitchen. I dropped my bag quietly on the floor and heard her voice through the half-open door. Patricia, you won't believe what Isabella did. Question my credit card charges! Can you imagine? She makes over 200 grand a year and still acts like I'm draining her. What else is her money for? She's not married. She has no children. We are her responsibility. My stomach dropped. Her responsibility. There it was, the unvarnished truth. Not gratitude. Not sacrifice. Ownership. I pulled my phone from my pocket, pressed record, and listened as she told my aunt she was thinking of making me sell my apartment, move back home, and funnel everything directly into the family. She owes us that much, my mother said. The words echoed like a gavel, a sentence handed down, and in that moment, I knew. I walked out of the house, my father's soft breathing following me, my mother's voice still spilling venom into the phone. I sat in my car, hand steady now. The ember inside me had become a flame. I dialed Elena. I'm ready, I said. That night, the silence in my apartment felt different. Not heavy, not suffocating. Purposeful. I spread the folder across the table. The trust documents, the bank statements, the recordings queued on my phone. Evidence of years of quiet destruction. Tomorrow, the first move would be made. Quiet, clean, irreversible. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. The Monday after that phone call, the world seemed unnaturally calm. Frost glazed the edges of car windows, the city still yawning itself awake, while I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold. My laptop glowed with open tabs. My bank's fraud prevention page, the trust account portal Elena had helped me access, and a folder of recordings waiting to be transcribed. At exactly 18:01 a.m., I dialed Elena. Today, she asked, her voice steady. Today. There was no tremor in my answer. By noon, the cards were cut. My mother's supplementary credit line, gone. Marcus's quiet leeching, severed. The bank flagged the accounts as excessive unauthorized charges, a phrase that felt like justice dressed in legalese. Elena explained every step as though narrating a heist film. At midnight tonight, the cards will still exist, but they'll decline at the register. That's when the explosion happens. Explosion. The word thrummed in my chest like a countdown clock. 2, and right on cue, it came. 10:47 a.m. My phone vibrated across the conference table while I was presenting quarterly forecasts to my team. Mom calling. I silenced it. 30 seconds later, Mom calling again. 5 times, I ignored her. By the 6th, I excused myself. Stepping into the glass-walled corridor. Isabella Torres speaking. I answered, voice clipped, professional. The sound that met me was not professional. It was a shriek. What did you do? I pressed the phone slightly away from my ear. Can you be specific? My card was declined. At Whole Foods. In front of everyone. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I breathed in slowly. Does it for groceries? That's not the point, she snapped. Fix this immediately. No, I said, calm but final. I've restructured the finances. Restructured. Her laugh was high, brittle. I am your mother. You don't restructure me. You'll receive a monthly allowance for household necessities. Dad's medical care remains fully covered, but the shopping sprees are over. There was silence, then a raw, disbelieving gasp. Allowance. You're giving me an allowance, like some child. No, like someone who has drained me dry. Behind her, Marcus's voice cut in. Is that her? Give me the phone. Shuffling. Then his voice, slick with anger. Bella, what the hell is this? Mom's crying in the parking lot like she's homeless. You canceled her cards. Are you insane? Insane? I echoed. Funny word. Because insanity is doing the same thing for 2 years and expecting gratitude instead of exploitation. You can't just cut her off. I didn't. She'll get $2,000 in a month. Direct deposit. More than fair. Fair. His voice cracked.
She's our mother.
She's also an adult capable of working, and you're a son capable of contributing. The days of me carrying all of you are over. Silence. Then, a whisper edged with venom. You'll regret this. I almost smiled. No, Marcus. For once, I won't. I hung up. When I returned to the conference room, my assistant whispered, "Family emergency." I slid into my chair, opened my laptop, and said evenly, "Family restructuring." The words tasted sharp and liberating. 2. That night. Elena and I sat in my apartment surrounded by folders, charts, and a tablet connected to the trust portal. The glow of city lights bled through the window as she tapped at her screen. They'll demand a meeting, she said. They already have. Tonight, 7 p.m. at my mother's house. Elena arched an eyebrow. Perfect. More witnesses. Witnesses. I thought of my aunts, uncles, cousins. All the people who had applauded my sacrifices, while offering nothing. An audience primed to judge. They'll expect me to crumble, I said. Then don't, Elena replied simply. 7 o'clock arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully navy suit, hair pinned, makeup minimal but deliberate. Elena's advice echoed. Dress like the CFO, not the daughter they expect. As I drove, my stomach fluttered with nerves. But underneath was something fiercer, resolve. Tonight, the script would flip. When I pulled up to the house, cars lined the street. My family had gathered like a tribunal. Through the window, I saw them. Mom in her favorite armchair. Marcus pacing, aunts and uncles perched like jurors. Elena met me at the sidewalk, her presence a fortress. Ready, she asked. I took a breath. Ready? Inside, the air was heavy with accusation. 15 pairs of eyes followed me as I crossed the living room. My father sat by the fireplace in his wheelchair, unusually alert. His gaze found mine, and for a heartbeat, I saw the man he had been. Steady, proud, protective. I sat in the empty chair across from my mother. Years of. Elena settled beside me, briefcase at her feet. Mom's voice broke the silence, trembling with rehearsed hurt. Isabella, how could you do this to me? To your family. I looked at her, steady. Hello, Mom. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Don't act like this is some business meeting. Marcus snapped. That's exactly what this is, I said, opening my folder. A meeting about finances. Because for 2 years, I've paid. Quietly, relentlessly, without help, without acknowledgement. Mom shook her head, eyes glistening. One never asked you to keep track like some accountant. The IRS requires it, I replied, sliding a page forward. $240,000. That's the total I've spent on family expenses in 2 years. Of that, $96,000 was for Dad's medical care. The rest, You're counting pennies. Marcus interrupted. The rest, I said firmly, was shopping, trips, luxuries, and $1,000 in unauthorized charges linked to you, Marcus. Gasps rippled across the room. Jennifer, his girlfriend, stiffened. You told me you were paying for all of that yourself. His face flushed. Jen, not now. Oh, now is perfect, she said coldly. Mom's voice cracked. You're twisting everything. We only ever wanted what was fair. It's your duty. My hand trembled as I pulled out my phone. Is it? I asked. Then maybe the family should hear what you said last week. Cleolena touched my wrist. A warning, but I pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room. She owes us everything. What else is her money for? She'll never have her own family. We are her responsibility. Aunt Carol's face went pale. Linda, you didn't. I was upset. Mom stammered. You're taking it out of context. No, I said quietly. For once, the context is crystal clear. Phew. The room erupted. Accusations, denials, whispers. But through it all, my father stirred. He raised his trembling hand, pointed at me, and with effort, forced a single word through his lips. Protect. Silence crashed down. Every head turned toward him. My mother's face drained of color. Alina stood, voice steady, commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, this is no longer about emotions. It's about legal authority. Robert Torres appointed Isabella as trustee of his personal trust 3 years ago. That trust contains $500,000. Isabella controls it. Legally. Irrevocably. The room gasped. Mom clutched the armrest. That money is ours. No. Alina cut in. It's Robert's. For his care. And Isabella will ensure it's used exactly as intended. Marcus's eyes lit with greed. Perfect. We can. You can nothing. Elena snapped. From this moment, Isabella decides. Every dollar, every bill. The free ride is over. I rose slowly, scanning the room of stunned faces. For years, I had been the silent benefactor, the dutiful daughter. Tonight, that identity was gone. This isn't cruelty, I said. It's boundaries. Dad's care will continue, fully funded. Mom, you'll receive $2,000 a month for necessities. The house mortgage. I'll cover 6 more months. After that, you'll adapt. Marcus, you'll get nothing. Because you've already taken everything I had. The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. I expected fury. I expected pleading. What I didn't expect was the silence that followed. Thick, stunned, irrevocable. The shift had happened. And there was no going back. The call came mid-morning, slicing through the calm rhythm of my workday, like glass underfoot. My phone lit up with the word Mom. I knew before answering what had happened. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 5 times. By the 6th. I stepped out of the conference room, pulse hammering, and pressed accept. What did you do? Her voice was jagged, panic-laced with venom. Good morning to you too, I said, forcing calm. My card was declined. At Whole Foods. The manager had to void the transaction. Mrs. Patterson from church was behind me. Everyone saw. What were you buying? I asked evenly. Don't you dare deflect. You humiliated me in public. Groceries or handbags? You little. She cut herself off, lowering her voice. You're going to fix this. Right now. I breathed in, steady. No. The days of blank checks are over. You'll receive a set allowance. Dad's medical care remains fully covered. But the rest stops today. There was silence, then laughter, sharp, bitter. Allowance. Do you hear yourself? I am your mother, not some teenager asking for gas money. Then stop acting like one, I said, before I could stop myself. A gasp. Then, shuffling, Marcus's voice cut in, hot and defensive. Bella, what the hell? Mom's crying in the parking lot. You can't just cut her off. I didn't. She'll get $2,000 a month for essentials. More than generous. Generous. His tone dripped with outrage. She gave you everything. You owe her. There it was. The script. You owe us. No, Marcus, I said, steel creeping into my voice. I've given everything. $240,000 in 2 years. While you bought cars and vacations. That's different. I'm building a life. You chose career over family. This is your responsibility. Not anymore. You'll regret this, he hissed. I already regret staying quiet this long. I hung up. Back in the conference room, my assistant whispered. Family emergency. Family restructuring. I said, sliding back into my seat. It was the first time the words felt true. 2. That night, Elena spread documents across my kitchen table. The glow of the city bled through the blinds, painting us in fractured light. They'll demand a meeting, she said. They already have. Tonight. 7. Then tonight. You stop being their victim. Her calm certainty steadied me, but my body vibrated with nerves. For years, I'd been trained to bend under my mother's voice, my brother's. Mockery, the family's chorus of expectations. Now, I was about to break that script. And breaking meant consequences. By the time I pulled up to my mother's house, cars lined the street like soldiers. Through the window, I saw them all gathered, relatives packed into the living room, eyes sharp with curiosity and judgment. Elena met me on the sidewalk. She was immaculate, her briefcase in hand. Remember, she murmured, facts over feelings. They'll come at you with guilt. Stay with the facts. I nodded, but my hands trembled. Inside, the air was heavy with anticipation. My mother sat in her armchair like a queen at trial. Marcus paced, jaw tight. Aunts and uncles perched on the edges of couches. And there, by the fireplace, sat my father, frail, silent, eyes more alive than I'd seen in months. I crossed the room, spine straight, and sat in the lone chair left in the center. Elena beside me. My mother's voice broke first, trembling with wounded authority. Isabella, how could you do this? Humiliate me like that. In front of family. In front of strangers. Hello, Mom, I said evenly. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Don't treat this like a business meeting. Marcus snapped. It is a business meeting, I said, sliding open my folder. Because for 2 years, I've carried the entire financial weight of this family. You're exaggerating, Mom said quickly. $240,000. I said, placing receipts on the coffee table. That's the exact total. $96,000 went to Dad's medical care. The rest, designer bags, trips, Marcus's expenses, mortgage payments, all from my pocket. He gasps, murmurs. Jennifer, Marcus's girlfriend, leaned forward, frowning. You told me you were paying for all that yourself. His face flushed crimson. Jen, not now. I didn't flinch. She deserves to know. A mom's lip quivered. You're counting pennies like some accountant. We are your family. It's your duty. My jaw tightened. Funny you say that. Because I recorded something last week. Maybe everyone should hear it. Elena touched my arm. A warning, but I pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, crystal clear. She owes us everything. What else is her money for? She'll never have her own family. We are her responsibility. The silence was nuclear. Aunt Carol turned slowly toward my mother. Linda, you said that. I was upset? Mom stammered. She's twisting. It's her voice, I said quietly. Marcus leapt up. You recorded our mother. That's illegal. 1. Party consent state. Elena cut in smoothly. Completely legal. The room erupted. Accusations, whispers, gasps. But then a sound cut through the chaos. A groan. Low, guttural. We turned. My father was moving, his face straining with effort. His trembling hand lifted, pointing at me. His lips fought against paralysis, shaping one word. Protect. The room froze. For the first time since his stroke, his voice had returned, fractured but unmistakable. Tears blurred my vision. I knelt beside him, gripping his hand. I am Dad, I promise. His eyes, wet with clarity, met mine. He nodded. When I rose again, the fear was gone. My voice no longer shook. This ends now. Dad's medical care will be fully funded through his trust. Mom will receive $2,000 a month. The mortgage, 6 more months. After that, adapt. Marcus, nothing. Because you've already taken more than enough. This is cruelty. Mom whispered. This is survival. I replied. Elena stood, projecting documents onto the TV. Robert Torres's trust grants Isabella full authority. She's been paying from her personal funds, while $500,000 sat untouched. That ends today, effective immediately. The room exploded again. But this time, the center of gravity had shifted. No longer their victim, I was the one holding the pen. And for the first time, I realized the story wasn't about what they thought I owed. It was about what I was finally taking back. The meeting didn't end so much as it fractured. Voices rose, chairs scraped. Cousins whispered into each other's sleeves. My mother sat rigid in her armchair, face pale and twisted. Mascara carving faint black rivers down her cheeks. Marcus paced like a caged animal, red blotches climbing his neck. And in the middle of it all, I stood, folder clutched tight, a trembling island of calm. This isn't over, Marcus spat. It already is. Elena answered for me. The documents are signed. The trust is activated. The cards are canceled. Legally, irrevocably. This is the new reality. The words dropped like stones, final and heavy. 2 later that night, back in my apartment. Silence wrapped itself around me. But it wasn't peaceful. It was thick, buzzing, like the air after a thunderstorm. I sank into the couch, replaying the meeting in my head. My mother's sobbing. My brother's fury. The cousin's stares. And then, my father's voice, rasping but certain protect. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, guilt curled its claws into my ribs. Was I protecting him or punishing her? Was I strong or selfish? The questions kept me awake until dawn, the city lights blinking through the blinds like accusations. The days that followed were chaos. Texts from Marcus, "You're destroying this family." Voicemails from my mother. Muffled sobs, accusations, begging threats. Aunt Carol's carefully worded email, "Maybe compromise." Your mother's fragile. Even at work, I felt their presence. My phone buzzed during meetings. My mind wandered during presentations. Colleagues noticed the shadows under my eyes, the tightness in my voice. One afternoon, my boss pulled me aside. "Isabella, you're distracted. Are you sure you're okay?" I lied. Just family stuff. I've got it handled. But the truth was, I didn't feel like I had anything handled. By the 3rd day, the silence from my mother broke. She called as soon as I transferred her first allowance. $2,000, exactly as promised. "You actually did it," she said, voice flat, as though still in disbelief. I said I would. And the mortgage? Paid for this month. 5 more. After that, you'll have to figure it out. Her inhale was sharp, wounded. "So you're making us homeless?" "No, I'm giving you time." "Options. Options." Her voice cracked into hysteria. "Do you want me to get a job at my age? Stand behind a counter like some desperate woman?" "Ah, plenty of women your age work." "Mom, I gave up my life for this family, and this is how you repay me. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'm not repaying you. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. There was a long pause. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. You've destroyed us, Isabella. No. Mom, I whispered back. I revealed us. She hung up. The family WhatsApp thread exploded after that. Long messages from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in months suddenly weighed in. Cousin Maria, you could have handled this privately. Now everyone's talking. Uncle David, she's not wrong to set limits. Linda should have told us the truth. Marcus, don't listen to him. She's tearing the family apart. I muted the thread. But muting didn't mute the ache. Sunday arrived, the day I usually visited Dad. For the first time in years, I hesitated at the door. What if he blamed me? What if the word protect was just a reflex, not a choice? When I finally entered, the house was strangely quiet. My mother was gone. Visiting Aunt Carol, the aide explained. My father sat in his wheelchair by the window, sunlight spilling across his lap. His eyes lit when he saw me. Hi, sweetheart, he managed, his voice halting but clearer than I'd heard in months. I froze. You sound better. Therapy knew one. Better. He struggled for breath. You did that. Ooh, tears stung my eyes. I knelt beside him. I don't know if I did the right thing, Dad. Everyone hates me. Mom says I ruined everything. He lifted his trembling hand, placing it on mine. Not ruined. Saved. The word cracked me open. For 2 years, I'd carried everyone's judgment like a yoke. To hear even a sliver of gratitude from him, it was enough to keep me breathing. Pooh. But gratitude didn't erase the war raging outside that quiet room. Marcus had started calling other relatives, spinning the story his way. According to him, I was hoarding money, starving my mother, using Dad's illness as leverage. The ripple reached Jennifer, his girlfriend. She showed up at my office unannounced, eyes red. I need to know the truth, she said. So I showed her. The spreadsheets, the receipts, the recordings. Her face drained of color as the reality unfolded. He told me you were rich, she whispered. That you offered to cover everything. That you loved being the provider. My laugh was bitter. Love isn't what drained my accounts. When she left, she hugged me tightly. Thank you for telling me. I wish someone had told me sooner. That night, Marcus called, voice ragged with fury. She left me. Are you happy now? You ruined my life. No, Marcus, I said softly. You did that yourself? He hung up, but his words stayed, echoing. The guilt grew heavier as the days passed. My mother's friends stopped calling me. Cousins avoided me at gatherings. On social media, I saw vague posts. Some daughters forget their roots. Family is forever unless money comes first. It stung. Each one was a blade, reminding me how easily narratives could be twisted. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Had I become the villain in their story? Elena called one evening, her voice crisp as always. How are you holding up? I don't know. You did the right thing. Then why do I feel like I set fire to my own house? Because you did, she said gently. But sometimes, the only way to stop the rot is to burn it out. Her words settled like ash in my chest. The breaking point came a week later. I was walking home from work when I saw her, my mother, standing outside my apartment building, wrapped in her heavy coat, eyes wild. Mom, what are you doing here? She clutched her handbag like a lifeline. You won't answer my calls. You're treating me like a stranger. You showed up unannounced at my home. Because I am desperate, her voice cracked. Do you understand what it feels like to beg your own daughter for food money? My throat tightened. That's why I set the allowance, Mom. You have food money.
It's not enough!
she screamed, her face twisted. You're selfish, Isabella. Selfish and cruel. I should never have raised you to be so cold. Her words ricocheted through the air, each syllable a strike. I felt the sting of every passerby's glance. A woman tugged her child closer. A man slowed, listening. Humiliation again. But this time, something shifted inside me. For the first time, I didn't shrink. I'm not selfish, I said, voice steady. I'm surviving. A tears welled in her eyes. But they weren't the soft tears of sadness. They were sharp, weaponized. Then maybe I should leave. See how you feel when I'm gone. Would that make you happy? To have no mother at all? The words landed like a dagger. And yet, beneath the sting, I felt something else too. The realization that this was her final card. Manipulation in its purest form. I straightened, meeting her gaze. If you leave, that's your choice. But you don't get to make me pay for it anymore. Oh, for a heartbeat. Her face crumpled, the mask slipping. Then, she turned sharply, storming down the sidewalk. I stood rooted to the pavement, chest burning. The city's neon lights flickering against my skin. The stakes had never felt higher. And the climax was coming. The family gathered again on a Saturday evening, summoned by my mother. She called it a reconciliation dinner. I knew better. This wasn't reconciliation. It was war dressed as Sunday roast. When I arrived, the dining table was already crowded. Cousins, aunts, uncles. Marcus lounged at the far end, jaw tight, eyes flashing. My mother sat at the head of the table, perfectly made up. Lips painted crimson, like a general preparing for battle. She stood as I entered. Finally, Isabella has come to explain herself. The murmurs rippled across the table. Accusing, curious, hungry for spectacle. I took the empty chair near the center, my father at my side in his wheelchair. His hand brushed mine, trembling but warm. It steadied me more than any speech could. My mother began. For 2 years, she said, voice quivering with rehearsed sorrow. I have sacrificed everything for this family. I gave up my life, my youth, my career for my children. And now, when I ask for help in my time of need, my daughter, my own flesh and blood, turns her back on me. A gasps. Shaking heads. Perfect performance. I waited. Let the silence swell. Then I spoke. For 2 years, I paid every bill. $240,000. My savings. My retirement. My future. And when I begged for help, I was told it was my duty. Not Marcus's. Not anyone else's. Mine. Because I'm single. Because I don't have children. A Marcus barked a laugh. Because it's true. You have nothing else going on, Bella. You live for work. You live for money. I looked at him. Steady. Then why did you steal mine? The room stilled. I pulled a folder from my bag, slid the receipts onto the table. 1,000 in unauthorized charges. Your weekend trips. Your dinners. Your sneakers. All billed to me. Jennifer, now his ex, stiffened in her chair. You said you paid for all of that. His face went red. She's twisting it. No, I said, my voice low, controlled. For once I'm telling it straight. My mother rose from her chair, pointing at me like a prosecutor. Ungrateful girl. After all I've done, after raising you, clothing you, feeding you, you dare humiliate me like this in front of family. I didn't flinch. Do you want them to hear what you said last week? Her eyes narrowed. Don't. I pressed play. Her voice, recorded clear as glass, filled the dining rooms. She owes us everything. What else is her money for? She'll never have her own family. We are her responsibility. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, whispers. A cousin's fork clattering against the plate. Aunt Carol turned toward her, eyes wide. Linda, you said that. I was upset, she sputtered. She's twisting. It's your voice, I said. Calm but sharp. The air crackled. Marcus shoved his chair back, rising to his feet. You think you're some hero. Bella, you're pathetic. Recording our mother, hiring lawyers, acting like you're better than us. He leaned over the table, knuckles white. You're not better. You're just selfish. I stood slowly, facing him across the length of the table. Selfish is draining your sister's life savings while you buy a BMW. Selfish is watching me eat ramen while you brag about Vegas. Selfish is standing by while Mom tells everyone I exist only to serve you. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It sliced through the air like glass. Selfish is you, Marcus. Jennifer whispered, almost to herself. God, I almost married you. Marcus's face twisted, rage spilling into every line. You ruined everything. He slammed his fist against the table. Plates rattled. My mother cried out, Stop this! She's turning you all against us. But the room didn't rally to her. The room stayed silent, waiting. Watching. And then, like thunder after lightning, my father spoke. His voice was rough, broken, but stronger than I'd heard in years. Enough. Every head snapped toward him. His face was pale but resolute, his gaze fixed on my mother. Linda, he rasped. Stop. She blinked, stunned. Robert. His hand lifted, trembling, pointing toward me. She saved. Us. Tears burned my eyes. His voice cracked, but he forced the words. I chose her. Trustee. To protect. From you. The room erupted in gasps. My mother's face drained of color. You what? He turned to me, eyes wet, shining. Proud. Of you. My throat closed. I sank to my knees beside him, clutching his hand. Dada. You live, he whispered. Your life. Not ours. For a moment, everything else fell away. The murmurs, the stares, the storm of anger and guilt. All that existed was his trembling hand in mine, his fragile voice giving me the permission I had been starved of for years. 2. My mother staggered back, hand over her mouth. You'd betray me like this, Robert. After everything. His eyes sharpened, clearer than I had seen in months. Not betrayal. Truth. The silence that followed was cavernous. For the first time in 2 years, the weight shifted. Not just in me, in the room. Relatives looked at me differently. Not as the dutiful daughter, not as the family ATM, but as someone standing on her own 2 feet, refusing to be broken. I rose, wiping my eyes. The old arrangement is dead. Dad's care will be paid directly from the trust. Mom, you'll receive $2,000 a month. The house. 6 more months of payments. Then you'll adapt. Marcus, nothing. And I will no longer apologize for saving myself. The words landed like a gavel. This isn't cruelty, I said. My voice firm, final. It's survival. The eruption was immediate. My mother sobbing, Marcus cursing. Cousins whispering. But beneath it all, my father's quiet strength lingered, his voice echoing in my head, your life, not ours. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I believed him. The house emptied slowly that night. Relatives leaving in hushed clusters, voices low and uncertain. They didn't look at me with the same accusing eyes anymore. Some avoided my gaze altogether. Years of. Others glanced at me with something like reluctant respect. Or maybe relief that the weight wasn't theirs to carry. Only the core remained. My mother, crumpled in her chair, mascara streaking down her face. Marcus pacing at the edge of the room, fists clenching and unclenching. My father slumped in his wheelchair. Years of. Exhausted from his effort, but awake, his eyes still locked on me with a pride that pulsed brighter than words. I touched his hand. "I'll get you home soon, Dad." He gave the smallest nod. My mother's voice broke through the silence. "You think you've won, don't you?" Her words didn't cut the way they used to. They hung there, brittle, powerless. "This wasn't about winning," I said softly. "It was about surviving." She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You'll regret humiliating me. You'll see. One day you'll be alone. No husband. No children. Just an empty apartment and money that won't hold you at night." I met her gaze steadily. "Then at least the emptiness will be mine." For a fleeting second, something shifted in her eyes. Not surrender. Not apology, but recognition. Then she turned away, shoulders rigid, retreating deeper into her silence. The weeks after the confrontation were strangely quiet. The family thread fell silent. Cousins, who once flooded me with requests, now stayed at a careful distance. Aunt Carol sent a brief message. "You did what needed to be done. Proud of you." Marcus disappeared from social media, his curated life unraveling once Jennifer left him. He texted once, "I hope you're happy." And then, nothing. And my mother, she didn't call. Not once. Part of me mourned that silence. Another part clung to it like oxygen. My father's condition, however, shifted. His speech therapy improved, his words clearer, steadier. The therapist said determination could sometimes spark progress. I liked to believe. It wasn't just determination, but release. Release from the financial storm swirling around him. One afternoon, I visited after work. He gestured to the small patio outside, so I wheeled him into the sunlight. "Peace," he said, simply, eyes closed against the warmth. "Yeah," I whispered. "Finally." He looked at me, his voice low but deliberate. "Proud." "Of you?" I blinked back tears. "You saved me too, Dad." He squeezed my hand with surprising strength, and for the first time since his stroke, I felt like I had my father back. Not the same, but present, awake, watching me as more than just a caregiver. In the solitude of my apartment, I rebuilt quietly. I cooked meals that weren't ramen. I lit candles without guilt for the electric bill. I opened old sketchbooks I hadn't touched in years, pencils scratching across paper like a rediscovered language. For the first time, I spent money on myself. Nothing extravagant, just a book I wanted, a pair of shoes that fit perfectly, a train ticket to the coast. Standing by the ocean, I let the salt air burn my lungs, waves roaring in my ears. I thought, this is what life tastes like when it's mine. But healing wasn't clean. Nights still came when guilt gnawed at me. I'd replay my mother's threats, Marcus's accusations, the shame of standing exposed in that dining room. Some wounds don't close neatly, they scar, reminding you of the cut every time you move. Elena reminded me often, boundaries are a kind of love too, just not the kind they wanted. I carried that truth like armor. Months later, I returned to the family home for the first time. The walls felt smaller, shadows heavier. My mother sat at the kitchen table, thinner, older. She didn't look up when I entered. I set a bag of groceries down. "It's not much, just some things Dad likes." She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired, stripped of their fire. "You still think I'm the villain," she murmured. "I don't want villains," I said quietly. "I just want peace." For a moment, her mouth trembled as if words might spill out. An apology, a plea, anything. But instead, she looked away. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was silence without venom. And for now, that was enough. That night, I tucked my father into bed. His hand caught mine before I left. "Free," he whispered. I smiled through tears. Yes, free. Betu, back in my apartment. I stood by the window overlooking the city. Neon lights flickered, cars streamed below. Life unfolding indifferent to my battles. I thought of the years I'd lost, the money, the relationships, the weight of being the dutiful daughter. And then I thought of the future. Uncertain, imperfect, but finally mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. I wasn't their wallet. I wasn't their scapegoat. I was Isabella Torres, and I was finally living my own story,